Welcome to today's edition of Diplomatic Passport. I'm Robert Mkondiwa. Now on this show, we give you our daily weekday dosage of what's going on in Zimbabwe, the region, and of course the world with regards to the coronavirus pandemic that has swept the world by storm. Now the key information we're waiting for today was regards education in Zimbabwe. The ministry and in fact the government had said they were going to give us an update on the way forward. A lot of families out there have their children who are really anticipating to go back to school, especially those classes that are supposed to be exam classes this year. Now, before we get into Zimbabwe, what are other countries outside of the continent of Africa doing with regards the reopening process? Well, in China, for example, they already started reopening, but reopening cautiously. And they have had these, and you see those young kids with a boxed in because they're trying to be absolutely safe. Face masks and the like, and all that has become a matrix of the new normal there in China. And of course, even Denmark has reopened schools and kindergarten, and this is all being done in very, very careful phases. However, we have to look at the rest of the world knowing that the pandemic is rather different here in Zimbabwe, because that pandemic is taking a different face and different shape wherever it goes and however it goes. Taking that into cognizance, we were waiting here at Diplomatic Passport to hear what the government of Zimbabwe was doing with regards our own youngsters, our own pupils, especially in primary education and of course in secondary and high school education. They had said tertiary was going to be looked at rather differently. So did they make a decision? Of course, they finally made a decision, but it is something that you absolutely need to listen to absolutely carefully, because the phases is going to be 5 phases that are going to be introduced until we have a full reopening and our children are back in school. And this is what the government had to officially say with regards the reopening process.
But for now, we are envisaging 5 phases of how to go back to school. Phase 1, we were looking at examination classes for 2020. That is grade 7 in the primary school, O-level and A-level classes in the secondary school. So when these finally open, we also are convinced that for us to be able to open, we need at least 4 weeks for logistical issues. Then phase 2, we are looking at classes that will take examinations in 2021. That is current grade 6, Form 3, and lower 6th. This group of learners we are hoping will come aboard 3 weeks after the first phase. We think we will need the 3 weeks to continue preparing for the coming in of the next people, because we'll be talking about social distancing. And for us, social distancing has a few very logistically important considerations for honorable members to note. When the third phase, where we will have grade 3, 4, and 5 in the primary sector, and then forms 1 and 2 in the secondary level. We are saying this one will also come perhaps after 2 weeks of phase 2. We are hoping by then we will be able to predict with greater ease. And we are hoping our winter, which is actually beginning, will have shown us clearly how the school is reacting to the cold weather. Then phase 4, grades 1 and 2 join. We are hoping again they will come in about 2 weeks after phase 3. And finally, we hope that winter will be totally gone when we do phase 4 and 5. We then have all our ECD learners coming in as the last group of learners. And we want to give them a 3-week break between themselves and the grades 1 and 2. We want to be able to see how grade 1 and 2 is managing before we can introduce these learners.
Well, there you have it. There's been this staggering, of course, some by the fortnight and some by the 3 weeks. And of course, it's something that's going to run over our winter period, which is fast approaching. So our children have to dust out those uniforms, get them washed out, because certainly as we go, we'll be seeing our students going back, our pupils going back to school in the next 2 months. And as you heard there, that's going to be a phased approach. Give me views, give me comments, tell me what you think. Do you think we're ready to reopen schools? I saw a lot of commentary today, even on our social media platforms. A lot of you have already started getting in and talking to me and telling me that they don't think it's a good idea that we've already started trying to reopen, and we don't know whether we're going to have a second wave of the COVID-19 virus. Remember, a lot of other countries are having second waves that are coming, and South Africa, for example, only this week, recorded some of the highest levels of daily readings that came back positive. And that's only our back garden. So there's a big question there. Should we really be talking about reopening our schools? Should we be putting our children in roads to education? Are those roads to education, or will those be roads to danger, roads to perdition? And keep giving me your views, your comments, and whether you think it's a great idea that within the next fortnight or so, there shall be these rollouts of this 5-phase going back to school for at least our primary, secondary and high school students. Now, we were talking about Gwanda, for example. There's a lot of people who came from South Africa, and talking about those people who are coming from South Africa to Zimbabwe being repatriated by the Big Time Strategic Group. Now, we had a number of them coming in. The 400 have come in, and they shall be given those food packs we talked about yesterday, and that already started happening today. And those images that you're seeing are images from Gwanda, and they have been given not only to those in quarantine, but also to the elderly in Gwanda, and also to those who are less fortunate in Gwanda by a Big Time Strategic Group, whom I'm sure you would remember is fronted by their boss, Justice Peace Maposa. And finally, that food has started trickling in. Of course, some of it is reaching Harare and Bulawayo and only started getting distributed today. And we'll keep you updated on this, and of course, on stories of those arrivals that came from South Africa. A lot of you are worried that South Africa, of course, being an epicenter, for example, in Southern Africa, of the greatest burden, the greatest COVID-19 burden, and us having to bring in Zimbabweans back home, you're worried whether that's actually something absolutely safe to do. So two hot button issues today, whether we should have our kids going back to school, and indeed some of you are touchy-feely about the issue of getting our South African returnees coming here. Now, there is the story of coming back not only to school, but we've got a story of coming back to the continent, coming back to business. And coming back to business, we've got a young man in a Zimbabwean who's been going all over the continent, and now he's been stopped because of COVID-19. And he says after COVID-19, he thinks there's going to be a new normal for business and for transactional business across the continent, and we'll have to think twice about how we do our business. Now, as a result, he has pledged to travel to each and every African country after COVID-19 to broker deals, to learn the new business trajectory, and that's a very, very big deal, really. Now, Zimbabweans are not new to playing 80 days around the world and Phileas Fogg. I'm pretty sure you remember Aluva, Alvin Jakata, who loves his football, and he did the same. Now, this is probably the Aluva Jakata of business, Chad Chawanda, and this is his thinking, this is his reasoning behind the whole business trajectory and terrain in Africa.
It's something that is happening today, right now, that we're all judging. We're saying, is this going to work? Afreximbank is championing funding intra-Africa trade initiatives. Majority of people don't even know who Afreximbank is. Majority of people don't even know and care about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. But here's something that is coming to change how things operate and how things work in Africa. Instead of judging how can we be part of this thing? How can we make a difference? So I would want to make a difference. I've decided to take an initiative to go around Africa. In the next 24 months, I would love to travel to all 54 African states and experience how it is doing business there. And have first-hand information and share with you guys.
Phileas Fogg there of the business world, as you keep talking to me here. Thank you for joining me. Farai Tigere, Dadirai Nanguya, we're seeing you. Mozechkoero Chuashira actually says, thanks for the update, Robert. Tricky. What special arrangements are being made for physical distancing, especially at boarding schools? Now, that's a very important question because we want to know what's going to happen at boarding schools. Not all our pupils are within the proximity of their homes. And for example, a lot of these youngsters will be leaving home and they'll be leaving with their face masks and with their sanitizers. But we know that at boarding school, it's a whole different ball game. Trust me, I remember once or twice sleeping in winter, especially with my shoes literally, so that I rushed to the dining hall, never mind the bath. So that's a lot of hard work for the boarding matrons and masters, because that's really boarding life, is it not? So who is going to police our children, our pupils, when they go to boarding school? Because it's a whole different ball game. Each school has a whole different approach and a whole different ball game, and we need to make sure we keep looking and watching our kids. How are we going to do that in the very resource poor places? Of course, a lot of us have these face masks and we somewhat can afford them. We've managed to put together a couple of mickles and muckles on the side to make sure that we buy them and we have them. And some of us, of course, it's only because the police will jump onto us. But how about in Mausekwa in Mzarabani, where you are going to expect a child who cannot afford a basic like warm socks to leave in winter and go to school with, to then even have a face mask? How are we going to be doing that there? And those are questions that we'll keep having to ask. For some of the answers to, with regards, of course, perhaps tertiary education, we've got those answers tomorrow. We've got Heartbeat with our partners Say What, and we'll be talking about having the students speaking out and talking to those in power. We're giving them a diplomatic passport, albeit on another program, on Heartbeat, because they will be telling us what they feel and the fact that they have to be part of this conversation. And indeed, I think our parents should have been part of this conversation of reopening, because there are a lot of things that that leave us as parents, as guardians, hamstrung. We don't have winter uniforms. How are we going to be able to afford sanitizers and the likes and everything else? How am I going to be assured that the children, my child, is going to be safe in school? And we've also got schools like in the high-density suburbs, which have got hot seating and a lot of numbers, a lot of class numbers. What are we going to do with those? Perhaps they're going to be spread out in the empty classrooms until phase 5 comes in. But really, these are all the core questions that we can and should ask and demand answers for from government. And speaking of seeking answers, we got a lot of information and a lot of questions from you. You were saying, at the beginning of COVID-19, we're assured there's going to be a lot of tertiary education institutions are going to be producing hand sanitizers, PPEs, and what have you. And we went round and round, and to be honest, personally, I wasn't impressed by what was being done. We didn't see the numbers, we didn't see as much of those products being made, but I would like to assure you that finally I came across an institution that really walked the talk. And they've actually been producing quite a lot of hand sanitizers and a lot of reusable PPEs. And one of the gentlemen who's absolutely happy with what they are doing was Wilbert Mzaruwetu, and he's been showing the world what they've been doing. We're going to be having him tomorrow in the studio to speak about that initiative. But today, we're going to show you what at least they've been doing, and you just judge for yourself.
Coronavirus is real. Over 2 million people have been infected with coronavirus globally. We at the UZ Task Force provide you with SARS-certified products ranging from sanitizers, bleaches, disinfectants. Help us protect your family. Help us protect your workers. Help us protect your customers. We also manufacture personal protective equipment ranging from reusable theater caps, reusable face masks, disposable plastic aprons, hazmat suits, overshoes. All these can be made to a specific customer design. Coronavirus is real.
So finally, we've stumbled upon somewhere where people are walking the talk, and we actually want to say congratulations to the University of Zimbabwe for actually giving us something absolutely tangible. We are tired of this institution is going to do this, so-and-so is going to do that. These guys have actually done something, and we're talking about it in the present participle. This week, we had a lot of creatives coming into the studio because it's Culture Week after all, and we wanted to pull them out so that they'll speak to you, they'll talk to you, they'll tell you how they're faring, and they'll tell you how the culture is of COVID is actually unfolding. Today, culture took on another gear, another step. You would have thought that perhaps Jah Prayzah, and remember we had Jah Prayzah in our 9th episode of Diplomatic Passport. Well, he had promised that he was going to find a way to resuscitate his album, Hokoyo, which was supposed to be at least released in the first quarter of the year. And he was toying with online releases and how it was going to go down. And you were eagerly anticipating what would happen. We thought at one time that COVID had really gotten to the lungs of his career. Well, his career and his album are not on a ventilator. They've been breathed life into today because he started dropping songs to that album, to Hokoyo, and a lot of people have received that album positively. But he had a special message for you guys on Diplomatic Passport because you were asking all the questions and saying, when is the album coming? We want to hear about the album. And he was here exactly on the spot where I'm standing today, and he promised. And he delivered on that promise. But before we play something for you from that album, well, let's hear what he had to say to Diplomatic Passport today.
Guys, I hope you enjoy our new album. And I just want to say, big it up to ZTN. Makaipa.
You are right, Jah Prayzah, ZTN, Takaipa. We managed to get you out of at least lockdown level 2 to speak to us and at least give us that drop to assure us that you walked the talk, and today you really decided to give us this song. Now we're going to be giving you just another Jah Prayzah song so that you at least just feel it. It's a tribute to Oliver Mtukudzi, and Oliver Mtukudzi is the lifeblood of a lot of genres in this country, and when we lost him, we lost a very great icon. We all felt this hole within our souls, but none bigger than the one that Jah Prayzah felt, because they really wanted to work on a number of projects going forward, and he was robbed of that. So we will leave you here on Diplomatic Passport listening to Gamuchirai, that epic song that he has dedicated to the man, the moves, the magic of Oliver Dairai Samanyanga Mtukudzi. So from me, Robert Mkundiwa, and from the entire team here at Diplomatic Passport, I'll see you tomorrow, but listen to JP.
Patijade kurunga mugaga zvimwe tichareva tasangana zvakadaro zvakanaka kuna Mwari tingori varanda, kutonga kwake hakuna mupanda, tochingoti zvakanaka, zvakanaka. Chikomo chiye chakoromoka mambo, aya aya. Chikomo chiye chakoromoka mambo, aya aya. Varume mvura yadeuka yairera nherera, vasikana mvura yadeuka yairera nherera. Raiva denhere rusivo mambo, mwedzi muchena chena chena we. Yanga iri nzouhono yaikuma, saka mhuru dzinozara naniko, samanyanga gore rinoringa madhibare. Yanga iri nzouhono yaikuma, saka mhuru dzinozara naniko, samanyanga gore rinoringa madhibare.